Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Hungaroring as you join myself, Ben Evans, as the cars head onto the circuit now to begin qualifying for the 8th race of the Euroformula Open season, which is going to take us to the midway point of the year and into the 8-week-long summer break. Well, unlike yesterday's qualifying session, the sun is out and it's going to be a scorching day as we are about 10 miles away from the very centre of Budapest, the Hungaroring track. Always challenging for the drivers with its technical nature, constant barrage of twists and turns, and due to that, overtaking here can be tricky, and therefore getting into a good position is all important. Well, the way that this qualifying session will most likely work is that the drivers will take to the track now, do a couple of laps, get themselves dialed in, make sure that the car is doing what they want it to, then head back into the pits, make any setup tweaks that they need, put on some new rubber, and then the last 15 minutes of the session or thereabouts are where we will see the time set, which will establish the grid. Well, yesterday we had a very different race to the ones that we've seen for much of the season, because Harrison Scott, the runaway championship leader, started down in 14th position as a result of having his best time from qualifying disqualified, and was only able to race his way up into 9th place before being caught in a race-long tussle with Petru Florescu and Devlin De Francesco. So it meant at the front of the field that Tiago Vivacqua came through to score his first victory of the season ahead of this man, Simo Laaksonen, with then the podium being completed by Nikita Troitsky, who pulled off a fantastic move about 2/3 race distance to overhaul Raul Hyman. And the story of yesterday's qualifying session was really the form of the Campos racing cars, which have been the pace setters throughout the course of the weekend. Raul Hyman joining the team at short notice for this Hungaroring round, with the switch of Petru Florescu from Campos across to Fortec ahead of this weekend. And Hyman was the pace setter during free practice on Friday, and was also the pace setter eventually during qualifying yesterday. But Simo Laaksonen, having his strongest weekend of the year thus far, very impressive in the race yesterday. Maybe a little bit frustrated that he couldn't quite overhaul Tiago Vivacqua to come through and claim the victory, but nonetheless, Laaksonen certainly laying down a marker for the sort of form that he's going to be hoping to demonstrate for the rest of the season, as he accelerates through the 16th and final turn on this 4.3 kilometre long Hungaroring circuit, blasts along the start and finish straight, which then falls away into the heavy braking zone at turn 1, around the right-hand hairpin, and then downhill through turn 2, which is just a right-hand kink, and then into the left-hander. He arrives now, turn 3. Road all the while continuing to tumble away, and then a right-hand kicker at turn 4 feeds him into the short downhill straight en route to turns 5, 6 and 7. And Laaksonen essentially into his first flying lap of the session. That last lap was a 1:39.3. So he just gets on the brakes into the chicane at turns 8 and 9. And what they've all got to watch this morning during this qualifying session is the track limits, because we saw on multiple occasions in yesterday's session that 4 wheels over the white line was being very swiftly acted upon by race direction, and it's resulting in drivers having their lap times disqualified. For the purposes of the opening minutes of the session, that's not so much concern, but it will be a concern as we head towards the latter stages of qualifying, and they'll only get a couple of shots at having a really quick lap. They'll have to navigate the traffic and the track limits to make sure that that's the case, as Laaksonen accelerates through, completes the lap, improves his time to a 1:38.2. So he remains at the top of, well, as I said it, he loses one of his times for a track limits violation. He actually keeps that one. as we have a look at Eliseo Martinez in one of the brace of Teo Martin Motorsport cars. And both Martinez and teammate Pedro Cardoso showed very strongly during the first phase of qualifying yesterday, but then Cardoso went off the road, brought out the red flag, and obviously he couldn't improve, nor really could Martinez, but the Teo Martin cars in race spec looking very good this weekend. Well, the driver who had maximum frustration yesterday was Mateus Iorio, who was embroiled once more in somebody else's first corner accident as he got squeezed with Alex Karkozic into turn one. It was Iorio whose suspension was damaged, pitching him out of the race, but it was also as he got pushed wide with the damaged car. Amir Vaidyanathan was tagged in the mess of all of it, and therefore the Indian driver who came in yesterday's race second in the standings was also an early departure from the race, and that has allowed Nikita Troitsky to move ahead of him in the points, and so the championship order is Harrison Scott still leads the way. This man, then the SMP Racing backed Nikita Troitsky for the DriveX squad, is second, with then Amir Vaidyanathan having dropped to third, but Vaidyanathan that is, will be hoping to bounce back with a good points haul and potentially a podium finish in today's race. Well, Troitsky's move on Raoul Hyman, the arguable highlight of yesterday's race on a track where it's so difficult to overtake. Troitsky was able to force Hyman into a defensive move into turn one and then swept around the outside. Thereafter, Troitsky did quite quickly get onto terms with the leading duo, but proved the old motorsport adage that it's quite one thing to catch the car in front, it's another to find your way past, and that's what he was unable to do, and therefore had to settle for third place. So here is yesterday's race winner, Tiago Vivacqua, who's also had a couple of other trips to Rostrum this year with a couple of third places. But the Brazilian really doing the winning at the start. He anticipated the lights excellently, got away very, very smoothly, but then was extremely committed into turn one. He saw a gap to the inside, went for it, was able to get the car stopped and turned, accelerated out of turn one in the lead, and thereafter it was the job of his rivals to try and depose him. They couldn't do that, and so Vivacqua came through to take victory. Now, the number 12 car you see there, that's Christian Hahn, and he is the current pace setter and has been looking the strongest he has done all season really this weekend, Christian Hahn. Very, very impressive on the slippery track during the opening phase of qualifying yesterday. Really keen to throw the car about and put it into all sorts of angles. He is currently atop of the times with a 1 minute 37.8, and that leaves him just 11 thousandths of a second ahead of Nikita Troitsky, with Amir Vaidyanathan in third, Raoul Hyman in fourth, Simo Laxonen in fifth, Devlin De Francesco in sixth, Tiago Vivacqua seventh, Yanni Fitcher in eighth, Pedro Cardoso ninth, and Eliseo Martinez completes the top 10. As I say that, Devlin De Francesco goes top. The Canadian, another driver who lost out by having his best lap times deleted, meant that he started yesterday from the very back of the grid. An exceptionally good first lap was able to promote him up into 8th position, and therefore he was able to net some points from the race, whereas at one point it looked slightly unlikely. Francesco looking to bounce back from a disappointing weekend in Paul Ricard a couple of weeks ago, but then prior to that, at Spa-Francorchamps at the end of May, he had been in exceptionally good form. A pair of podiums through that weekend. Still yet to see a time from our championship leader, Harrison Scott. He and Alex Karkozic, his RP Motorsport teammate, joining the session later than their rivals. And so that means they're run slightly out of sequence. As we approach the 1/3 point in the session, Eliseo Martinez moves top for Teo Martin Motorsport. And he might lose that lap time as he runs very wide coming out of turn 13. Also had Devlin De Francesco losing again one of his good lap times, and this is what they've just got to be so careful about, is once they put all four wheels over the white line, then essentially they're in violation of track limits, and there's been a zero tolerance policy applied for the course of this weekend as Harrison Scott moves to the top of the standings. So Scott, his first flying lap of the session, 1:36.7, he goes top. His RP Motorsport teammate, Alex Karkozik, up into 7th. Very well supported this weekend, Karkozik. Large fan club to cheer him on. Yesterday, with the season's best qualifying 4th, he couldn't quite capitalise. He was caught up in various comings together into turn 1 and got shuffled down the field as a result. Third of the RP Motorsport cars is Lodovico Laurini. Laurini, who has generally raced a little bit better than he's qualified throughout the course of the season. Found it tough going on the slippery track yesterday morning, a couple of spins for Laurini, then got involved in the thick of the action during the race. Or Karkozik, potentially en route for his best lap of the session so far. Christian Hahn, another driver who's lost his lap time, as has Eliseo Martinez. And this is all going to be very interesting, because what they will do is, as we approach the point of the session, start to peel into the pit lane, put on a fresh set of tyres, and then we will start to see the times being punched in. Karkozik, though, pressing onwards. And this should be Karkozik's best lap of qualifying so far. So he accelerates through, crosses the line, and it, in fact, all goes away from him during the final sector. So Karkozik doesn't improve from 8th place. Harrison Scott also deciding to continue for another lap. We've got much of the rest of the field in the pits. So the order, as you can see, to the left of your screen: Scott, De Francesco, Weidenathan, Hyman and Martinez. And here is Raoul Hyman, right on it again. The South African, who's also racing with the Campos team in GP3. It's been blisteringly quick all weekend, but absolutely on the ragged edge, as he was then. It was a slight mistake yesterday through turns 8 and 9 that cost him a lot of momentum. Here's another look at it. Big correction needed, and that will have felt pretty bumpy for Raoul Hyman, given how stiffly sprung the suspension in these cars are. And as a result, Hyman decides enough's enough. He darts into the pits. And so the overwhelming majority of the field in the pit lane now putting on a new set of tyres. They all run, of course, on the Control Compound Michelin tyre, which, in terms of qualifying performance, will give them 2 or 3 laps of peak performance with which to try and set the lap time that they need. De Francesco continues on his way, just sets an improved time, a 1:37.1. Harrison Scott remains the pace setter and has also elected to visit the pits, so it's only really Devlin De Francesco and Alex Karkozik who continue to circulate. And there is Harrison Scott, the championship leader, 5 times a race winner this year. Yesterday was the first time that Harrison hadn't actually finished on the podium. So he will just be having a look at what the times are saying. You can see that just the last adjustments to tyre pressures being made, because the team will be checking that data, making sure the cars are absolutely in optimal condition for the final run of qualifying. As Devlin De Francesco continues to circulate. Based on the pace so far this lap, it would appear as if this is an in-lap for the Canadian. Well, you talk to the drivers, they'll say that even in-lap in qualifying, there's still something you can learn. This is the chance where you can just explore maybe if there's a little bit of grip somewhere unexpected here and there around the circuit, which might just allow the opportunity to spring a surprise, overtake a rival at some point in the race. As he peels into the pit. So we've only got Alex Karkozik currently circulating. Everybody else is in the pit lane, and Karl Kozik, it would appear, has also ducked into the pits. So the whole field now in the pit lane, which is exactly what we'd have expected, as this is when tyres are changed, setup is adjusted, and then the drivers are sent out for their final run. So from the opening salvo, it's Harrison Scott who was quickest from Devlin De Francesco, then Amir Weidenathan third from Raul Hyman, Eliseo Martinez and Simo Laxton. We'd expect to see those times improved upon with the new tyres. Nikita Troitsky in seventh from Alex Karkozik, Pedro Cardoso and Christian Hahn. Yanni Fitcher only in 11th, and his Fortec teammate Petru Fresco in 14th, so they've got a fair amount to do. Daniel Pranenko for BVM, again unfortunate to be caught up in first corner comings together yesterday. He has had a real run of bad luck in qualifying so far in races so far this year. Yet to get into the points, maybe today will be that opportunity. Laptops plugged into the cars. Chance to download the data and just ensure that everything's working as it should, make any necessary adjustments. Chance to enjoy in slow motion the cars riding the curbs through turns 8 and 9, and what you start to see there is the massive G-forces being pushed through the front and rear wings on these cars. They offer a phenomenal level of grip, particularly relative to the power of the cars. But that grip is often on a razor's edge, and these drivers are, even though at times it can look as if the cars are handling on rails, they're absolutely on the limit, extracting absolutely everything that they possibly can from the performance of the car. Okay, Mateus Iorio just looking through the corner, trying to pick his line. Same for Thiago Vivacqua, although on that occasion maybe just busy saving the slide as well. Tarun Reddy, one of the three Carlin drivers. You just see how hard the driver's having to work the wheel and how much of a buffeting they're taking, because they're absorbing the lateral G-forces as they change direction. And then this being Raul Hyman's big moment. Steers out of it. The car almost completely airborne at one moment. Everybody waiting to be released. The track will get very, very busy in a couple of moments' time. And when it does, it will be a case of one, maybe 2 laps to warm the tyres, pick a little bit of clear air, and then go for it. Who is going to emerge first? Because there's always that game of cat and mouse, which is if you head out of the pits first, you might get a slightly clearer track. The flip side of that, of course, is that then your opportunity to respond is going to be minimal when you have to peel in, having got the best out of your tyres, and others have still got another flying lap or so up their sleeve. So the cars all just in the shade in the pit lane here at the Hungaroring. Like so many of the tracks on the Euroformula Open calendar, a Formula One circuit, a chance for these drivers as they move up through the international motorsport ladder to learn the circuits that they hope to race on one day in Formula One and other categories. And of course, what we've also seen this year is the fantastic success of Euroformula Open graduates racing in the United States, most notably the 2013 champion Ed Jones, who's been doing a fantastic job throughout the course of the season for the Dale Coyne Racing Team in IndyCar. And I think but for the appearance of Fernando Alonso at the Indianapolis 500, almost certainly would have been voted Rookie of the Year. Particularly as Jones almost thrust into a team leader role now, with following the injury to Sebastian Bourdais in qualifying at Indy. All very, very calm over at RP Motorsport, just waiting for the clock to tick down before the drivers get released onto the circuit. Harrison Scott just very relaxed and composed in the cockpit, waiting for the signal to get onto it, as we're seeing a couple of cars beginning to run down the pit lane. Petru Florescu, another one who gets the signal. As you can see, brand new tyres for the Romanian as he pulls out of the pits, as it's Amir Weidenheithen who heads the train with his Carlin teammates. Devlin De Francesco, Taran Reddy also heading out of the pits. Others may wait a couple more moments, and given it's quite a warm day, I expect they're only going to need a lap or so to really get the heat into the tyre, and thereafter we'll start to see the lap times being piled in, and that's when the session will really start to come alive once more, because this is what it all comes down to. The last 9 minutes of qualifying, 2, maybe if they're lucky, 3 flying laps that will set the grid for this afternoon's race. As Christian Hahn flies in formation with Daniel Pranenko. And lots of work ongoing on Simo Laxonen's car. Now, that is not what the team would be wanting to see. Looks like it is maybe a little bit of damage to the side barge board, or possibly even within the side pod. Whatever it is, the Campos Racing team hard at work just securing the radiator duct as well. So this frustrating for Laxonen. All these teams, though, very well drilled in all the repairs that need to be done in the pit lane. And so, although there is a level of pace to the activity over at Campos, there is also no unnecessary rush. So the work that was needed was completed. The side pod is fitted, and Laxonen will be on his way momentarily, as across the line goes Devlin De Francesco. Having had 5 or so minutes sojourn in the pits, what can the Canadian do now? We'll expect that this lap may be a flyer, but it's more likely that the one afterwards is where we're going to start to see the true pace of the car that's going to determine the grid positions, as the Carlin driver winds downhill, plants his right foot for the sprint from turns 4 to 5. That opening sector for De Francesco, not a personal best, so rather suggests it's the lap after this one, which is going to be the point at which he really pushes on. Just winds his way through the chicane, careful not to fall off the edge of the curbs coming out of turn 9. And then turns 10 and 11, 12 as well. Track wends its way onto turn 13, which is a key corner in terms of the exit speed, also in terms of staying within the track limits. But you can see there, just by putting a couple of wheels onto the curb, De Francesco not quite on it on this lap. Now here is Harrison Scott. And Scott has been a master in qualifying throughout much of the season. Last time out in Paul Ricard, he had a complete clean sweep of the weekend. 2 pole positions, 2 fastest laps, and 2 race victories. Sort of domination in the championship we've not really seen since Sandy Stuvik back in 2014, as Raoul Hyman is now pushing. He's just done the fastest middle sector of anybody, and we're beginning to see the pace elevating with just a couple of minutes left on the clock. They're going to have time for as many laps as I think the tyres will permit them. But track position is going to be key. We've got the yellow flag over at turn 14. And just have a look from the commentary box as to who is the miscreant. It's through the final turn on the lap, which is where somebody's gone off. The car that has gone off is just out of sight of the commentary box. We can see the yellow flags, double waved yellows on the way in to the turn. We'll pick it up now, because here comes Harrison Scott. Double waved yellow flags. Oh, there it is. And it's one of the Teo Marti Motorsport cars that's pulled right to the inside of the track, getting up to speed again now. Looks like it was Pedro Cardoso who was in trouble. So now Scott released into a flying lap. Raoul Hyman has just done a personal best of the session 1:36.9. Yellow flags have been retracted, so we have got the track clear. Everybody can push. Tarun Reddy is on his personal best lap of the session in 13th. He'll be completing that fairly shortly. Also looking to improve his Petru Florescu. So the order is going to be somewhat shuffled in a moment because Harrison Scott has just set the fastest first sector of the session. Raoul Hyman has just set the fastest middle sector of the session, and Devlin De Francesco has just set the fastest third sector of the session. So everybody pushing. And Harrison Scott is just able to find the pace from the car without ever looking like he's driving raggedly or really wringing everything out of the car. We've got Raoul Hyman who goes top now. So Hyman improves to a 1:36.6. So Raoul Hyman moves ahead of Harrison Scott by a tenth of a second. Scott had a slow middle sector. He backed out of the lap. He's backed out of it completely again. So he's going to have time for two more flyers. So it's Hyman from Scott, De Francesco, then Amaya Weidenathan. Christian Hahn is 5th. Petru Florescu is 6th. As Scott's released into another flying lap. What can he do? He's got a fair amount of clear air before he gets up to Yanni Fitcher in one of the Fortec cars. The whole field covered by just 2.5 seconds. As Raoul Hyman hasn't improved on this lap. And he he's definitely backed out of it, not using anything like the amount of track that we'd seen previously. So who's on the quick one? The Amaya Weidenathan could be shaping up to do something, as is Devlin De Francesco, who goes top. So De Francesco now fastest for Carlin, a 1:36.650, 0.02 of a second up on Raoul Hyman. Now let's see if De Francesco can keep the time. It's been an issue for him. Matteo Siorio. Frustration there in the cockpit of the Campos car, almost as if he was willing it to get into gear, as Hyman won't have improved on this lap, but he has got clear track now to push. Harrison Scott, however, is nailing the purple sectors. He's just done the fastest 2 sectors of the session in the opening sectors of the lap. He has got just 2 corners to go. And is this going to be another pole position for Scott? Really pushing, taking advantage of the clear track as he swings through turn 16. The car almost threatening to break traction, but not quite, as he accelerates through over the line now. And he goes quickest, a 1:36.1 for Harrison Scott, half a second up on the rest of the field. Alex Karkozic goes 4th with a 1:36.8. Nikita Troitsky for DriveX on a very, very good lap as well. Simo Laxonen jumps up to 4th position. And Troitsky goes 2nd, just 7/100ths adrift of Harrison Scott. So the order is Scott, Troitsky, De Francesco, Hyman, Laxonen, Karkozic, and Weidenathan. And the session, with just 65 seconds to run, is now reaching boiling point. And this lap isn't going to be enough for Raoul Hyman. He may well get pinged for track limits, but he wasn't quick enough through the first or indeed second sectors to improve his time. Petru Florescu improves to 8th place. 2.7 seconds, the split of the field. Hyman's going to get one more roll of the dice here, and it's not going to come from this lap, but Nikita Troitsky is improving on this lap. Weidenathan goes 3rd, a 1:36.5. So he makes an all-car in row 2 at the moment with teammate Devlin De Francesco. Raoul Hyman has slipped to 5th for an all-campus row 3 alongside Simo Laxonen. As Eliseo Martinez goes 3rd for Teo Martin Motorsport. Well, we said they've got a good car this weekend, and Martinez proves it. Great lap, 1:36.5 for him, as the checkered flag goes out, and Harrison Scott, the first driver to take the flag, as Amaya Weidenathan loses his best time for track limits. That shuffles Weidenathan down to 9th. Is this going to be a replay of what it was? Don't think so. Now, where are we going to see improvements late on in the session? It's currently Scott from Troitsky, Martinez, De Francesco. Raul Hyman is on a good lap. De Francesco's on a good lap. He goes third, a 1 minute 36.5 as well. Fractionally quicker than Eliseo Martinez. Raul Hyman on a personal best lap of the session. Now, what can the South African do? Mateus Iorio also on a good lap as Pranenko takes the flag and is going to line up in 17th. He fails to improve. Team Carlin watch nervously. There's a risk De Francesco's going to lose that third place, but Raul Hyman doesn't improve through the final sector, so he's going to line up no better than 5th. And that was one of the men they were watching. Mateus Iorio also having a poor final sector, so he will start in 15th. Pretty much the whole field across the line, with the exception of Eliseo Martinez, who crosses now. There's no improvement, and it's just Yanni Fitcher who now takes the flag and is going to line up in 13th. So Harrison Scott, after a difficult day yesterday, bounces right back. He sets pole position from Nikita Troitsky, the pair of them continuing their front row lockouts. Devlin De Francesco and Eliseo Martinez on row 2, from Raul Hyman and Simo Laaksonen on row 3. Then Tiago Vivacqua, race 1 winner, in 7th, ahead of Alex Karkozic. Amir Vaidonathan losing his best time, so will line up in 9th alongside Petru Florescu. Pedro Cardoso in 11th, ahead of Christian Hahn. And then frustration for Yanni Fitcher, he'll start 13th, ahead of Tarun Reddy. Mateus Iorio, another difficult session, to 15th, clear of Lodovico Laurini and Daniel Pranenko. We will be back later on today for the 8th round of the Euroformula Open season. So don't forget to join us just after 1 o'clock local time here in Hungary, as we will mark the midway point of the Euroformula Open season. And the championship leader, Harrison Scott, will start from pole position. Until then, it's goodbye from Hungary.